Hello and welcome again. Today, this episode is focused on the societal stigma associated with suicide. The stigma is comprised of various misconceptions about suicide that are believed by individuals in our society, most likely including you. This stigma, of course, doesn't impact our lost ones directly, though, as I will share later in the episode, misconceptions can shape how we remember our loved ones. The stigma primarily impacts you, the survivor. Perhaps you feel as though you've been assigned to wear a big scarlet S, viewed by everyone around you. You may believe others see you and your loved ones in very judgmental ways. You may see yourself through the lens of stigma. So what comprises this societal stigma? Well, let me share some of the more common societal beliefs about suicide. People often believe that suicide is the ultimate selfish act of a weak-minded person. Some people believe that suicide is a death carried out in order to punish survivors. Suicide means the deceased was, by definition, seriously mentally ill. Suicide only happens with those from a dysfunctional family. Suicide is an unforgivable sin, and suicide is not a proper topic of conversation. And certainly, there are more suicide-related misconceptions out there. Some of these beliefs even touch on truth, but a more thorough and nuanced understanding of suicide shows us that an individual's act of suicide is anything but simple. For example, the belief that a person must be seriously mentally ill to commit suicide. Well, there are indeed some clear statistical correlations between some specific mental illnesses and suicide. But wait a minute. Suicide and mental illness are not the simple cause and effect relationship that many would believe it to be. A better way, I think, to make sense of the underpinnings of suicide is thinking of basic symptoms that tend to precede a suicide. Now, as a therapist, I have observed that the victim of suicide was always experiencing some strong interwoven feelings. Normally, this is fear, pain, and hopelessness, and that comes together before they take action. His fears may or may not seem realistic. His pain may be physical, psychological, or both, and his overpowering sense of hopelessness had become an impenetrable fog blocking his ability to see the potential for a different future. A struggling person at the point of carrying out a suicide has, well, at least momentarily, lost a clear sense of self-determination. He believes his sole remaining option is to choose whether or not to continue living a life that he now deems as intolerable. He wants his pain to end, and he's blind to other ways to alleviate it. And, get this, he does not want you or anyone else to stop him at that point. Please take a moment and let that soak in. Failing to predict to prevent a person's suicide is because they planned it so that you could not predict or prevent it, at least most commonly. Now, because of these misconceptions and the shocking nature of a suicidal death, we can errantly begin to see our person's life only through a lens that is tainted by his manner of death. It follows then that you might begin to remember your loved one that way. Here's a story about it. A recent client of mine told me about her experience with exactly this issue. Her husband had taken his life. She said all people seem to remember was his tragic death, but he was so much more than that. He was a really good man, a caring father, and a loyal friend to many. He should be remembered for who he was and how he lived for over 50 years. Do you think she's right? Well, ask yourself, do you want your memories of your loved one to be mostly about his or her manner of death? His choice to die is undoubtedly not how you wanted your relationship to end, and I don't mean to minimize how shocking, painful, and difficult his death is for you. But when you're ready, it may help you to place this tragedy of his death into the bigger perspective of your overall relationship. In fact, the totality of your relationship is probably the best way to address your loss and to put order to your memories of your loved one. Okay, I'm going to wrap this talk up in the next couple of minutes. And so please take these thoughts and facts with you from today's episode. First, the societal stigma of suicide does sadly exist, and it is comprised by overly simplistic, conflicting, and sometimes highly inaccurate beliefs. Second, we sometimes are responsible for projecting stigma upon ourselves and on our loved one more even than the opinions of other people. Third, understanding suicide is difficult, it is highly nuanced, it's never simple, and all too often survivors like you are left to make their best guess as to why our loved one decided to die at his own hand. People should be remembered for how they lived more than they died is the final one. Here's a stepping stone. I would like you to ask yourself, am I focused more on my loved one's manner of death than I am reflecting on our life together? And then consider this question. What do I want to remember about my loved one? Give that some thought, maybe journal on it. And here's a reflection for today. How should a person's story be told? Should we inscribe their life stories on our hearts based mostly on highlights and lowlights? Or rather, should we give even more weight to who they were to us in the mundane and ordinary days of our lives together? I'll leave you with that thought. I look forward to speaking to you again sometime soon. In the meantime, be well.